It is the year 2521 of the Imperial calendar, and in the wasteland, a goblin shaman is plagued by terrible dreams and dark portents. This shaman, Gan Strask of the Blue Forest tribe, believes them to be visions of a great war to come. A great war that will ravage the Empire. A great war that will provide the perfect opportunity for the Blue Forest tribe to rise up and reclaim their place in the world, starting by living in an actual forest once more, after being so cruelly driven out by the Wood Elves of Laurel Lorraine. So equipped with this forbidden knowledge, Gan begins to scheme. If the tribe is to have success in the war, they need good leadership and resources with which to fight. He approaches the leader of the tribe, the goblin boss Greerkrim, and suggests a plan. They've been driven from Laurel Lorraine, sure enough, but that doesn't mean they can't use the forest. There's not that many elves anyway. They probably won't notice if Greerkrim leads a few of them to the edge to cut down some trees. The lumber can be used to prepare chariots and other war machines for the conflict to come. Greerkrim is enraptured by the promise of glory that awaits. It's a good thing, he tells Gan, that he came up with this idea of raiding the Laurel Lorraine forest for lumber so they can win this war that Gan says is coming. Gan agrees through gritted teeth and helps Greerkrim assemble his band of goblins to begin felling trees. Naturally, the goblins were very mistaken about the Eomir, the elves living within Laurel Lorraine. Almost immediately their ghost riders identified the goblins. With such large numbers, and so far on the edge of the forest, the elves didn't act immediately. For a few weeks, the goblins were allowed to fell trees, all under the watchful eyes of the ghost riders. When the first chariot arrived, made from lumber of the Laurel Lorraine, and it became clear that the goblins had no intention of stopping, the Wood Elves finally struck. The ghost rider, Sandy, assembled a few of her men, alongside some Kithband warriors, a hawk rider, and a small contingent of dryads, and prepared to put an end to Greerkrim and the Blue Forest tribe's plans. The Battle of the Blue Forest Edge was about to begin. Today's game is a 250-point game of Warhammer Fantasy 6th edition warbands between Wood Elves and Goblins. The battlefield is designed to represent the edge of the forest, where the tree coverage is still light, but more plentiful on the side of the Wood Elves, who are emerging from the forest to attack. Deployment was done using the actual rules for deployment in a red twist for this channel, with each side taking turns placing units. The Wood Elf army comprises of a mere 15 models. Deploying as scouts, directly behind the Goblin army, is a unit of 5 Way Watchers, including a Shadow Sentinel, Sandy, who acts as the army's general. They will be representing the Eomir Ghost Stalkers. Representing the Kithband warriors is a unit of 4 Glade Guard, deploying on the left side of the board. They are joined by 5 Dryads, occupying the center of the Wood Elf position, and a lone Hawk Rider positioned in the rear. Opposite them, the Goblin army is led by the Goblin Big Boss, Chief Greerkrim. He is mounted on a wolf and is equipped with light armor and a shield. He is accompanied by 4 Wolf Riders carrying shields and spears, but foregoing any armor to retain their agility as fast cavalry. He is joined by a unit of 20 Goblins, which outnumbers all the elves on the battlefield by themselves. They all wear light armor in a bid to protect themselves from the arrows of the elves. Another 10 goblins deploy to their left, split into 2 units of 5, all of them carrying bows. Finally, to the right of the big block of goblins sits the wolf chariot, crewed by a group of goblins eager to prove their worth. Both sides roll for objectives, something I usually forget in these battle reports. The Wood Elves roll the option to choose their objective, while the goblins get capture the colors. As the Wood Elves have no banner, they are also allowed to choose their victory condition instead. The Wood Elves choose Assassinate, looking to make an example of Greerkrim. The Goblins, meanwhile, pick Annihilate, looking to kill just 8 elves to turn the tide in their favor. Both sides roll for first turn, and the Wood Elves score a 6, giving them the choice. They take the first turn. The Eomir begin the battle with a strong advance on their objective. The Dryads emerge from the woods and move forward to avoid the fire of the Goblin archers while closing in on the enemy line. Meanwhile, the Hawk Rider flies to the left flank, joining the Glade Guard in their bombardment of the Goblin archers. Finally, in the rear, Sandy leads her Waywatchers towards Greercrim and his Wolf Riders. They open fire on the unit, trying to secure an early and easy victory by killing their target. All 5 of them hit, and 2 threaten to wound their targets, but 1 arrow is caught on a shield, leaving only 1 goblin to fall. The Hawk Rider meanwhile opens fire on the Goblin archers. She misses her shot. The Glade Guard open fire as well, landing 3 hits. The goblins don't have any armor, so when 2 arrows are on target, the goblins have nothing to stop themselves being wounded by them. With such a small unit, there's a slim chance of panic spreading in the ranks, but the goblins hold strong. The goblin turn begins in a typically disastrous manner. The 2 relevant units both make animosity checks, and the archers fail. They roll a 1, causing them to turn and fire on the goblins to their right. They only land 1 hit, but it's surprisingly accurate, wounding the goblin and slipping through his armor to injure him. This also prevents the unit moving at all this turn, which is a problem, as they need to be closing in on the elves to start doing any damage in this fight. The rest of the goblins at least leap into action. The goblin unit that was just shot at crests the hill, unable to march due to the Waywatchers behind them. Greercrim and the Wolf Riders meanwhile rush up the flank, getting as far from danger as they can. Finally, the chariot hurries forward to be able to charge the Dryads if possible. The goblins aboard the chariot grab their bows and open fire. None of them can hit, but they do realize something very unfortunate as they take their shots. They are close enough to the Dryads that they are at risk of being charged very soon. Obviously, the plan was for them to do the charging, so this poses a serious problem to the battle plan. The archers on the left flank meanwhile take up their bows and open fire on the Hawk Rider. A single archer hits, and even is on track to wound the rider, but the hawk turns at the last moment, catching the arrow in its body, where its large size negates the damage the arrow would cause. Seeing the threat the goblin archers apparently pose to her, and knowing of the goblin's natural fear of elves, the Hawk Rider charges at the poor goblin archers. Their nerve holds, and they open fire on the charging bird. Once again, the same goblin lands a shot, and this one actually hits a serious spot on the hawk, threatening the bird's well-being as it charges into the goblins. On the right, the Dryads begin to charge the chariot. Knowing that they can, and will, catch it, the goblins choose to flee, planning to wheel around and strike back in the near future. The fleeing goblins obstruct the Waywatchers from approaching the rest of the formation. They move north, getting around the chariot to threaten the goblins once more. The Glade Guard, meanwhile, have been denied their preferred target, and seeing how the goblin formation is falling into disarray, they advance and open fire on the large unit of goblins atop the hill. Of their 4 attacks, 2 of them land, and 1 strikes a vital point, but the goblin's bone armor prevents the arrow. From behind, the Waywatchers also open fire. They make 5 shots, all of which hit. 1 arrow penetrates clean through a goblin's skull, killing him instantly, while 2 others hit vital points on the body. 1 is stopped by the armor, but the other passes clean through, killing a second goblin. On the left of the battlefield, the Hawk Rider and her hawk both attack the goblins. Despite making 2 attacks, neither of them hit. The goblins fight back with their axes and bows. 2 of them manage to land hits, one of them getting up close with his axe to cause a distraction, while the other shoots the elf atop. This shot proves enough to wound her, and the hawk flees the battle to bring his rider to safety. The goblin turn begins with a small mistake on my part that I only caught when I got to this point in the script. The wolf riders aren't supposed to test for animosity, but I didn't notice that during the game, and it triggered this turn. I can only assume that Greercrim's eagerness to prove himself overwhelmed my memory of the rules, as his unit rolls a 6, and they surge forward, eager to show the Dryads who's boss. They wheel around the forest, rather than pushing straight through it, as such a move brings them a little closer than going through the forest. Gurkrim carries this momentum on to charge at the Dryads, overcoming his fear of their supernatural power to lead his men in a daring assault. Across the field, the archers also advance, trying to get into range to fire at the Glade Guard, while the big block of goblins reform to face the Way Watchers. Unfortunately, the chariot that would be supporting them failed to regain its nerve after fleeing, and they run off the board without having done anything. The archers open fire on the Glade Guard. The first unit makes 3 shots, none of which hit. The second unit fires 5 shots, and one of them manages to make contact with the Glade Guard. It's a grazing hit that does little more than cut his cheek as the arrow passes, leaving the unit largely unfazed. Turning back to Gurkrim, he leads his wolf riders in a bold attack. He isn't equipped with a spear, but every other wolf rider is, so they all strike just as hard. Between the 6 attacks of the group, only 2 of them hit. One of them wounds, and the supernatural protection of the Dryads isn't enough to stop the damage. The wolves join in, one of them biting down on a Dryad and managing to snap a little bit of wood off of it. Unfortunately, it wasn't an important piece, and the wolf is distracted by the new stick it's created, preventing it doing any further damage. The Dryads strike back, making 6 attacks against the wolf riders. 5 of them hit, and they all deal significant damage. One of them is caught on a goblin's shield, but the other 4 tear through the goblins, killing all but Gurkrim. The final Dryad swipes twice at Gurkrim, hitting him with both swipes, and managing to wound with one, but it's caught by Gurkrim's armor. Seeing his men being torn apart, Gurkrim turns and flees. The Dryads run him down, catching him and pulling him off his wolf to tear the small goblin apart with their claws. The tide of the battle is turning against the goblins, and the Eomir capitalize on it. The Way Watchers move away from the goblins, denying them the close combat they desire, while the Dryads advance to threaten them in the near future. As they fall back, the Way Watchers open fire, and all 5 of them hit. This time, only one lands a serious hit, and the goblin falls, his armor proving ineffective against the missile weapon. Across the battlefield, the Glade Guard advance and open fire on the smaller unit of goblins. They make 4 shots, 3 of which find their target. 2 of those wound the unarmored goblins. Left alone in the face of such an onslaught, the remaining goblin decides the chariot drivers had the right idea and turns to flee. The goblins atop the hill advance towards the Way Watchers, wheeling a little to put the hill between them and the Dryads, preventing them from being seen by the forest spirits, and lining themselves up to charge at the Way Watchers in the future, even though this is a clearly doomed enterprise. Meanwhile, the archers continue to rain arrows on the Glade Guard. They loose 5 more arrows, 2 of which make contact, but again they miss anything important, and the Eomir fight on. The Wood Elf plan continues in its simple form. The Way Watchers fall back, while the Dryads continue their advance, rounding the corner of the hill to see the goblins, and threaten a charge into their flank next turn. The retreating Way Watchers open fire, and for the first time in the battle, one of them actually misses. Of the 4 arrows that hit, only one threatens to wound a goblin, and it fails its armor save, breaking yet another rank of the goblin formation. The Glade Guard, meanwhile, have halted their advance and open fire on the archers again. 3 of the 4 arrows find their mark, and all 3 of them inflict serious wounds, devastating the goblin formation. Despite these losses, the goblin nerve holds. The battle is clearly falling apart for the goblins now, and it would take a miracle to pull things back, or an especially clever plan. Unfortunately, these goblins aren't the brightest bunch. The main unit reforms to face the Dryads, maximizing their frontage at the cost of a little bit of their rank bonuses. The archers meanwhile continue firing at the Glade Guard. The 2 arrows fall well and truly short of the Wood Elves, all but sealing the fate of the archers. The Dryads and Way Watchers both charge at the goblins. The goblins pass their fear check, giving them something that resembles a chance in the melee to come, as they are engaged on 2 fronts. The Glade Guard, meanwhile, fire once more upon the archers. Again, 3 arrows connect, and again, they are all wounding hits, proving more than enough to fell the remaining 2 goblins. The Dryads take the lead in this conflict, tearing into the goblin ranks. They make 8 attacks, and 5 of them make contact with the goblins. 3 of them threaten to kill their prey, and 2 of them succeed, the last blocked upon the goblin's shield. The Waywatchers join in on the brutal assault. They are each carrying 2 swords, making for 8 attacks of their own. They land 6 attacks, 3 of which are life-threatening. One of them bounces off the goblin's armor, while the other 2 strike down the goblins on the flank, preventing them fighting back. The 5 remaining goblins near the front do their best to strike at the Dryads. Only one of them manages to hit, and he hits something important. The Forest Spirit's natural defenses aren't sufficient, and it is struck down by the goblin. This small victory isn't enough to turn the tides for the goblins, and they turn and flee the fight. They only make it 7 inches, with the Dryads pursuing only 6. Sandy and her Ghost Stalkers, however, pursue a full 12 inches, running the goblins down and defending the woods with minimal casualties. With the Eomer victory, the forest is safe from the goblin logging once more. Back at the camp, Gan Strask hears what happened from the charioteers. With the death of Chief Greerkrim, leadership falls to Gan, just as he'd planned. He has big plans for the Blue Forest tribe in the years to come, and all that lumber Greerkrim and his boys grabbed for them will be essential to getting that plan off the ground. This battle was, frankly, a steamroll. I almost considered not turning it into a battle report because I felt like it might be boring. Ultimately, I obviously decided to go with it because sometimes this just happens. Sometimes there's a small mistake, in this case, the chariot moving an inch or 2 too close to the Dryads, that just ruins your whole game plan. And sometimes the whole game is just lost when you make lists. It happens, and I think not showing it in battle reports and only trying to make appropriately cinematic experiences can be bad for the hobby. With that said, let's look at what the Goblin plan was and what went wrong. Essentially, the plan was to try and wipe out the Dryads with the impact hits of the chariot, and rush the Wolf Riders to the rear to get around behind the Glade Guard. The Waywatchers were firmly a if we have the resources to spare kind of problem, where I more intended to sacrifice a blob of goblins to keeping them busy all game. Obviously, this plan came crashing down as I misjudged the chariot's move and then gambled on the Wolf Riders to do a bit more damage in the fight. 2 more dead Dryads and the fight looks very different. Once those 2 things went wrong, the game was a formality at that point. The Wood Elf plan, meanwhile, was, well, basically what happened. It was a more flexible, shoot them a bunch plan, and that worked perfectly. Despite this game being a bit of a wash, if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Every bit helps the channel grow and ensure there are more battle reports to come. I have a big 5,000 point game in the works between High Elves and Hordes of Chaos, but the next video is going to be a first look battle report of Trench Crusade, as my curiosity has gotten the better of me, so I hope you'll tune in for that one when it comes out.